my great-grandfather, Bird Stringer, had a country store, general store.
On our mom's side.
Which is on our mother's side. It would have been my mother's grandfather. And he had a grocery store that he operated from early 20s, 1920s, till I guess it was about 1954. And he sold it to my Uncle Jasper for a brief period, and then my Uncle Jasper turned around and sold it to my dad in 1955, I believe. Mm-hmm. And so then Dad, that's how Dad got involved. It was he bought it from my grandparents.
60 years ago last week.
I mean, it was fun growing up around the grocery business with Dad. He always welcomed us to hang around the store and wanted us to kind of learn what he did. And he worked countless hours from 6 a.m. to come home at 10, come home in the middle of the day, and eat supper with us. And constantly he was, he encouraged us to come and hang around the store. And we had little jobs from a child, always.
Well, I can remember my earliest recollection was longing to be able to reach a drink machine to help fill up an old Coke bottle machine, that had the stalls in them. And then there were basic other tasks in the grocery business, from
bagging potatoes, wrapping bananas,
and those kind of things. And then always cleaning. If you ever ran, as you got older, if you ran out of something to do, you were assigned a mop or a hot bucket of water and some soap.
Locking shelves.
Yeah. Well, Dad saw that store grow from, really an old country. I always say, when I'm describing it to people, I remembered the inside of that building because I was young. I was only 4 when they tore it down and built the building as we know it today a little bit. I describe it as one of those old 2 gas pumps outside and white wood frame building with a colonial bread screen door. That generally clicks with people that are in that era to know what that was. Dad liked the hardware business, and he had some friends in the grocery business like him that were looking into other things too, and so he just saw the opportunity or the need, I guess, for that space where we were between 285 and the Gwinnett County Norcross area for a hardware store to do something. Gwinnett County was growing, or just beginning its birth into the whatever it's known, has gone through in the area.
Growing Gwinnett.
Yeah, growing Gwinnett. You remember the towers painted over on 85, and so everything started as it would come from Atlanta, from the south, moving up.
Back then, there were no big box stores per se. Even though Home Depot started, the second Home Depot started 2 miles down the street
70s.
in the late 70s, mid 70s, I guess, right down the road from our Dorval store. And but mainly it was a one-on-one service, waiting on the customers. You didn't have the big box stores. And we were in a unique area down there. We were in an area that was industrial, and we kind of migrated to industrial customers early on in our True Value relationship. And we were never, per se, the cookie cutter hardware store in the beginning.
Yeah, the hardware store was always, the hardware store in general was always the getting place, or the place to get it, what you needed. In the area of any home improvement or outside of lumber. Now some guys sold lumber as well, but lumber in those days was kind of the lumber yards, and hardware stores were everything else. And that could, depending on your location, that could look like cookware, or it could look like more than picture hangers.
Right. So there were very few specialty stores like they are today for construction and for the industrial.
Or for anything. Yeah.
It was pretty much a hardware store or a lumber supply store. Graduated from college and was building houses, and housing business was not doing too good, and I quit building houses in '86, And John and I were talking, and a lot of praying, and a lot of seeking the Lord on what to do for my life. And John and I were praying about it, and we just really felt God opening the door for us to be in business together. And so in 1987 or 1986 was when we were really
Started
seeking,
riding around looking for locations.
riding around looking for locations, and actually put a contract on a piece of property on Pleasant Hill Road where Lou Saab sits today. And we put a contract on that property, and they didn't accept our contract. And looking back, I'm thinking, boy, I sure am thankful they didn't. And
Congested area.
and so God was looking after us there, and we were riding up the road and saw Frank Duncan on his ditch witch putting in a water line to his building beside us at Duluth, and
That we now own.
and Frank told us he'd sell us any amount we want, just mark it off, and he'll sell it to us at X amount per acre. And we jumped on it, and we bought that, and our only regret is we didn't step off more property.
We didn't draw it big enough. Anybody could see, any fool could see this growth moving north in Gwinnett County. And so there was one hardware store in Duluth. We know those people, Parsons family, great, wonderful people. And we just kind of thought, man, there's enough room for another hardware store up there on the south side. You know, they were more Duluth, downtown, uptown proper, and like I said, had a great business, and we just knew there was enough. We knew if it wasn't going to be us, it was going to be somebody else.
Yeah.
And so we just thought, why not us? So we got crazy. We thought, and we were scared to death. But there we went. You know, we have great memories of Dad in that era because he and Doug practically built the building. I mean, from dirt up, and with a contractor, but did a lot of the work there. And
It's kind of neat how God worked things out. Really, you look back as really a God thing. In 1985, my mother was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and it was malignant in the sense that it would keep growing back. And so, but the doctors told us she would live 5 to 10 years.
yeah,
And I think Mom actually lived right at 6 years after they discovered it. And so that was in 85, and things started amping up for Dad to be her chief caregiver around 87. And so Dad had sold his grocery store, and I believe it was 85.
he sold his grocery business in, what year did you get married?
I got married in 85. He sold it in 85.
Yeah, and shortly after he sold it, like 2 weeks after, he and Mom left after she'd had her first surgery, left for treatment up in the Baltimore area, the Boston area, and so he was pretty much retired.
He transitioned to be just chief caregiver to our mother, and really didn't have to worry about any of his business because he had John and I there running that, and
Probably need to worry.
and yeah, that's right. And so probably good cause of worry.
He was still around to make comments.
But it was very good for us to have that freedom to do those things. And Dad always was a dad that let us mess up. You know, he would not micromanage you. He would let you mess up and then ask questions after you did, see how you do it differently. And always had a lot of wisdom in that area. And we're very thankful for Dad and the way he managed us and the way he trained us. And but God used that though to transition him out, and after Mom had passed away, Dad then came back, and he never was really in a management part of doing things, didn't really desire that, and he was just always there for support. And
Dad worked. His mantra was work. He wasn't a vacationer. He didn't have any hobbies other than work. It was either planting a garden or going and digging a ditch with a tractor or with a shovel, or he wasn't scared of effort, and he loved being part of the business. He actually maintained an important role for us as long as he could in being a runner. up and down the road between stores, and that was very helpful. And because we do a lot of that today, and understand just the integral role of that. So he was always on call. I could pick up the phone and say, "You want to go get this for me, or will you go get it, or do you want to ride with me to go get it?" And he was ready.
Well, in 1987, when we opened Duluth, we were trying to figure out things that we could do differently. And we had a friend who had recently sold his hardware business, Jim Luke, and he had sold his hardware business in Lilburn, Georgia. And so Jim came to work for us to help us get started. And Jim,
he was a godsend too.
Yeah, it was really a God thing that Jim was sent to us at that time, and at that perfect timing. And Jim was in the equipment business. He sold lawnmowers, and I'll never forget him talking us into, or encouraging us to go this direction, to get into the equipment business, the mower business, the chainsaw business. And so we got set up with Toro, right, and that was probably our first major line. And shortly after that, Honda and Snapper, and our first Steel was in 1987. And then and later on, it just kept expanding. And through those years, we'd probably never gotten the equipment business as early or when we did if it hadn't been for Jim Luke encouraging us to do that.
Well, and I got to give Doug a little credit too, in being he was a visionary and didn't know it. I don't guess he knew it, but 30 years ago. He talked about specialty stores. 30, 40 years ago, there was a band of guys that worked for the Coca-Colas of the world and the whoever large corporation, and you got guys that washed the cars and mowed the grass and did all these kind of things. But now there's a specialty industry for every one of those things and every one of those needs. And so I think with the growth of Gwinnett County and some early companies like A.R. Weeks, which is
Morrell Group.
now, Morrell Group, and all these guys that were getting in the landscape business that saw the need for that. The landscape industry is not an old industry, so it's only 25, 30 years old, I guess, at best, and it's only started getting on steroids in the last 20 years. But I think Doug saw some more than I did. I remember when I sold 12 home light chainsaws in a year and thought I was king dog daddy. And if we don't sell 12 a minute now, we're pretty ticked. 12 a day, I should say, or something along there. But Doug saw some things I didn't see. I remember that first load of Toros backing up to the door, and I said, "What are we doing?" And that first load of pallets of chainsaws, and I said, "What are we doing?" And so it's working out, I guess.
Came up, our very first one was a customer appreciation, a demo day, and that was our very first one. We just gathered all of our vendors
in the off
season and invited our customers to come look at and see all the different equipment and all the variety that we offered.
Get their hands on it.
That's exactly right. Get them on the machines, get them trying it and seeing what all they did. We had so many customers. Prior to Pro Day, I'll never forget, we had a lot of customers that would pile in the store and they were wanting to buy large amounts of equipment, and I was tied up waiting on some widowed lady trying to sell her a weed eater, and it was a big decision for her, and I had to give her all my undivided attention, while in the back of my mind I was hoping that my big commercial customer didn't go away while he was waiting on me to see him. And so that kind of gave us the idea, let's have a one-day show so that we can generate all this business in one day and get them sewed, get their deal sewed up and out of the way.
And then have ability to schedule follow-ups with delivery and nailing down specifics in orders and that kind of thing. So I'd say nobody accuses us of any rapid growth. 72, 87, 99, and then we had Alpharetta in 2012, yeah. So, holy mackerel, we're not being accused of too much rapidity here, I don't guess. We had some friends here in the same kind of business, and they approached us.
I had met Stan Bell was the owner of this company. Stan Bell and co-owner with not Eddie Martin.
Johnny Martin.
Johnny Martin. Stan Bell and Johnny Martin, and I had met Stan. First time I met Stan was on a X-Mark dealer trip, and he and I got off together, and we were just talking one-on-one and became friends at a dealer meeting. And number one, we realized that we were both really one heart with the Lord and our as Christians, and really just hit it off together talking with Stan. And I remember Stan, in my first conversation with Stan, I noticed that he had really a heart for ministry and a heart for missions, and at that time, early on, and just something, we had a kindred spirit right from the get-go. And I remember probably 5 or 6 years later, after our first introduction, he and his partner approached us about wanting to get out of the business, and or Stan quit owning the business, and wanted to have somebody to come in that would partner up with them. And so
Stan wanted to be freed up to have ability to do some part-time, but to be gone from the business for extended periods on doing some mission projects, and so it's hard to do that and be feet on the ground in the business too. So, and that's proven to be God's calling on his life, because that's what he does full time today.
That's right.
And so I remember we met over here at Shoney's and kind of worked out a deal over a cheeseburger. There again, we were scared. We left there scared to death, saying, "What did we just do?"
I think we just bought a business.
I think we just bought a business without calling our banker. So
Yeah.
we better get him. We better go visit him next.
Yeah.
So yeah, we bought that existing business. It was over here on the interstate, and then we were praying about adding hardware to the mix, and so we, much like back in the Frank Duncan store at Duluth, we did some ride-arounds up here, and we looked over across the expressway and over here and up and down everywhere, and found this property, and thought it was a good deal. So the guys, we worked out a deal with Mr. Mayfield.
Right. Prayed about it, got confirmation, and after we got confirmation this is the right thing to do, we were pouring the slab on September 11th, 2001, and
If that rings a bell with
if
anybody.
that rings a bell, and we had just gone in debt for this building, and
Planes were hitting towers.
planes were hitting the towers, and we said, man, is this what we really need to be doing? And God just affirmed us and said, keep on going.
Yeah.
And so we kept on going, and it hadn't been easy, but we've been able to sustain it. Well, I think when you think about changing, you have to have benchmarks in your life that doesn't change.
Yeah.
And we have to go back to a core value that you have that doesn't change, and I think that core value is our relationship with Christ. It can't change. I mean, you gotta have standards in which you live by, and
God is sovereign. He's on his throne. He's unchangeable,
and keep in perspective, everything we're doing here is temporary.
Yeah.
And all these chainsaws we sell doesn't have any eternal value at all. And all the equipment we do, and we have to keep that in proper perspective. That we do have a
greater calling.
a greater calling and a greater cause, and kind of keep in mind that we're living for the unseen. And but with that being said, it also, I guess, another benchmark we go back to is our love for people. We love people, and we love our employees, we love our customers, and enjoy meeting their needs. And
We enjoy the birth of a child with them, and we grieve with them when they lose a loved one. And we're all family. As far as your question about change and how was that your question?
Mm-hmm.
And just how we affect that. I mean, throughout life, I can remember Dad using an analogy of a speed breaker in the road. He said, was that a major catastrophe you just came through, or was that a speed bump? And so I kind of think about that, and I thought, well, that was more of a speed bump. It didn't tear out the 100 carriers of my car, but it hurt when I hit my head on the roof. So when I came over that bump, so there's things to be learned, and there is change. This world's rapidly changing. I had an old friend that said change brings reluctance, and that's come to be pretty true in most any organization we're involved in. That folks don't generally embrace change real well, and we're probably not the best, but we're learning.
I think when you think about change, I think about how our business focus are, changing from the grocery business to the hardware business and to the equipment business, and that we, that you have to adapt throughout life, and we're thankful that the hardware business and the equipment business is still pretty good for us right now and sustaining, but areas change, geographical areas change, and
So you have to therefore change your focus as to how you reach that group
Right.
in a geographic area. Our Adorable stores experienced some tremendous change in makeup of who lives within a 5 and 10 mile radius there. So.
And our staff down there has adapted well to that change in market, and is meeting the needs of that group of people very well.
No cookie cutter stores, how about that? So everyone has its own personality and own reach.
Therefore, we're constantly looking as far as vision going. How can we get more efficient? How can we do things with less steps? What are the things we can do that would create more of a spread in margin there? And in new locations, that's one of the things that motivated us to look into Alpharetta and open up Alpharetta was the fact that we could do this and felt we could do it with and generate a better margin in that type of model. Me, it's the people. I love my coworkers. I love working with the employees that we have. Enjoy being around them. I enjoy my customers. I really enjoy the customers and have a good relationship with them, and enjoy being around them.
And I echo that. It's really all about the people. It's I love what I do. I love getting up in the morning and my wife kids me about there's no morning I don't get up early, and when my eyes open, my feet hit the floor. I don't lay in the bed and look at the ceiling. But I really, I think Doug and I, we love being together. We love being in business together. It's a good thing because we owe a lot of money together. And but as I said about the employees, we're all a family. I've joked before, Doug and I have the privilege of knowing lots of pastors and churches, and so we've joked about it's kind of like pastoring a church. Our flock's only about 80 people last week, but and Doug says, yeah, none of them, they're not tithers. but that's a joke because really they're more than tithers. They're giving more than that. They're giving
Right.
themselves. And it's an honest day's work for an honest day's pay, the old cliche, but they are really overall a giving bunch. And then the customers are, we love being crazy with our crazy customers. And they too married children, and they too buried parents and others. So our people are tremendous, and we have been extremely blessed to have the best. And so we got some tremendous guys and girls out here making the wheels roll every day.
And also can't forget our vendors. We have
That's right.
good relationships with our vendors. I mean, our vendors is also a vital part of what we do.
It's kind of a try-you.
Yep.
If we're together for 5 minutes, for example, I rode with him over here to get a biscuit a while ago and back in the car. We're never together more than 5 minutes when we don't start reflecting on or talking about the past with family, with our current funny employee situation. So I can't reiterate enough, we're grateful for our heritage that our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents even handed down to us, and some responsibility goes with that about what we do with that for the next generation, not only in our children and our loved ones, but the people that we employ and whoever God can use us to help paint the picture and model and reflect on what's important.